The ocean floor near New Zealand has a gash in it. Not a crack, not a canyon, a perfectly straight, kilometer-wide scar running for over 300 kilometers along the bottom of the Kermadec Trench. A submersible drone dropped to 9,400 meters in early 2024 captured it on sonar and video. The walls are vertical. The edges are clean. There are no talus slopes, no debris fields, no signs of natural collapse. Geologists reviewed the footage. They said it was a fault line. Then they saw the angles. Faults don't cut at 90-degree corners. Faults don't have right-angle intersections that form a perfect grid over an area the size of Manhattan. They ran the data once. The structural analysis came back saying the formation was not tectonic. They ran it again. Different software, different team. It came back the same. Then a third time. The result? The feature shows geometric symmetry, consistent with artificial construction. That doesn't just rewrite the textbook on geology. It burns the whole thing. Let's start where the official story begins to crack. In a dry cave system in southern Turkey, near the Syrian border, archaeologists in 1994 found something that forced them to throw away everything they thought they knew about the Stone Age. The site is called Göbekli Tepe. It's a series of massive stone circles, each ring made of T-shaped limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons. The pillars are carved with intricate reliefs of scorpions, snakes, and vultures. Nothing like it had ever been seen. The problem was the date. Archaeologists assumed the site was Neolithic, maybe 6,000 years old. They sent samples of charcoal and bone collagen to a lab for radiocarbon dating. The first result came back at 11,600 years old. That was impossible. The oldest known megalithic site at the time, Stonehenge, was only 5,000 years old. They ran it again, different samples, different lab. It came back the same, then a third time, 11,600 years. Read that number again. That places Göbekli Tepe at the very end of the last ice age, when humans were supposed to be simple hunter-gatherers, living in small nomadic bands. The mainstream reaction was swift. The establishment said it must be a natural formation. Then the excavator, Klaus Schmidt, pointed out that the pillars were quarried from a bedrock layer over 300 meters away and transported by people who had no wheels, no metal tools, and no domesticated animals. The institution that funded the dig initially tried to shut it down. Careers were built on the model that complex society began with agriculture in Mesopotamia around 4000 BC. Göbekli Tepe was twice as old, and it wasn't a village, it was a temple. A massive, coordinated construction project undertaken by people who supposedly hadn't invented writing or the wheel. Here's the part that scares the experts. Only about 5% of Göbekli Tepe has been excavated. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed at least 16 more megalithic circles buried beneath the soil. Schmidt once said the site could keep archaeologists busy for the next 50 years. But the implications are already clear. The date says civilization didn't begin in the Fertile Crescent. It began somewhere else, much earlier. And whoever built Göbekli Tepe was already advanced enough to organize a workforce of hundreds, scarve stone with precision, and align their structures to celestial events. And here's where it gets worse. That site is not an anomaly. It's the first domino. Subscribe right now, because what comes next has researchers questioning everything they thought they knew about human prehistory. 700 miles south of Göbekli Tepe, in the dry desert of the Negev, something older was waiting. In 2019, a team from Hebrew University was surveying the Timna Valley using ground-penetrating radar. They were looking for copper mining tunnels. What they found was a buried structure over 300 meters long, perfectly rectangular, with walls still standing 5 meters high. They dug a test trench and hit worked stone. Radiocarbon dating of organic material, sealed beneath the lowest layer of the wall, returned a number that made the lab director call the excavator personally. 14,200 years. That is over 2,000 years older than Göbekli Tepe. They ran it again. Different sample, different machine. It came back the same. Then a third time. The site, now called Nahal Ein Gev, is a massive stone enclosure with foundations cut directly into bedrock. The walls are aligned to the cardinal directions within half a degree of error. The stones are fitted together without mortar, using a technique called dry stone construction. that requires precise knowledge of weight distribution and load bearing. The establishment's response was immediate and hostile. The lead archaeologist, Dr. Naomi Porat, faced calls to retract her findings. Colleagues argued that the radiocarbon dates must be contaminated by older carbon in the groundwater. Porat responded by testing the groundwater. It was clean. Then she tested the soil beneath the walls. Same result. The structure was built 14,200 years ago. That was the height of the last ice age. Sea levels were 100 meters lower. The coastline of the Mediterranean was miles farther west. And some group of people, was building permanent, geometrically precise structures on a scale that shouldn't have been possible. Here's the part that breaks people. The site shows evidence of multiple phases of construction. The earliest layer is the most sophisticated. Later additions are cruder, as if the knowledge was being lost over time. That inverts the entire model of human progress. It suggests that the peak of this forgotten civilization was at its beginning, not its end. And that raises a terrifying question. If they were this advanced 14,000 years ago, what were they building 20,000 years ago? The answer to that question is buried somewhere else, and it's older than any of them. But that was only the beginning. 4,000 miles to the west, off the coast of Japan, the ocean floor holds a secret that geologists have refused to touch for over 30 years. In 1986, a diver named Kihachiro Aratake was exploring the waters around the island of Yonaguni when he found something that didn't belong. A massive stone structure rising from the seabed at a depth of 25 meters. It looked like a step pyramid, rectangular terraces, straight walls, right-angle corners, and a central staircase leading to a flat summit. The formation is over 100 meters long and 60 meters wide. Aratake reported it to the University of the Ryukyus. A team of marine geologists led by Professor Masaki Kimura conducted sonar scans and dives over the next decade. Kimura published his findings in 1998. He said the structure showed clear signs of human modification, tool marks on the stone, symmetrical cuts, and a circular stone platform that resembled a ceremonial plaza. He estimated the age based on the depth of the formation and the rate of sea level rise. The lowest terraces would have been above water during the last ice age, meaning the structure was built at least 10,000 years ago. The first reaction from the geological establishment was that it was natural, a freak formation of sandstone and shale. Kimura responded by pointing out that natural formations don't have perfectly straight 90-degree corners. They don't have parallel grooves cut into the rock at regular intervals. They don't have a central staircase that aligns with the cardinal directions. They ran the sonar data again. Different team, different software. It came back showing the same geometric precision. Then a third time. The pattern was clear. The structure was artificial. And here's where it gets worse. Kimura's team found a second structure nearby, and a third. A full underwater complex covering an area of over 2 square kilometers, with what appears to be a road network, a drainage system, and a massive stone archway. The establishment's response was to bury it. The Japanese government refused to fund further excavations. The academic journals that initially published Kimura's work came under pressure to issue retractions. The lead critic, a geologist named Robert Schoch from Boston University, argued that the structure was natural despite the evidence. His reasoning? Because it can't be man-made. That is not science. That is dogma. But here's the number that matters. The Yonaguni Monument sits at a depth that places its construction at the end of the Pleistocene, around 12,000 years ago. That is the same period as Göbekli Tepe and Nahal Ain Gev. The same window. The same impossible civilization. And if you look at a map, those 3 sites form a triangle spanning the entire northern hemisphere. Turkey, Israel, Japan. Someone was building on a global scale before recorded history began. And the fourth discovery proves that the scale was even larger than anyone imagined. 500 miles west of Yonaguni, in the South China Sea, a team from the Chinese Academy of Sciences was conducting a routine sonar survey in 2022. They were mapping the seabed for a proposed undersea cable route. The sonar pinged back a massive rectangular anomaly at a depth of 1,200 meters. They assumed it was a shipwreck. They sent down a remotely operated vehicle with a camera. What the ROV found made the operator stop breathing. A stone wall, vertical, straight, running for over 2 kilometers across the seabed. The ROV followed the wall to a corner. It turned 90 degrees, followed it again. Another corner. The wall formed a perfect square enclosing an area of over 4 square kilometers. Inside the square, the ROV found the outlines of structures, rectangular foundations, straight lines that looked like streets, a central plaza, with what appeared to be a stepped pyramid at its center. The team from the Chinese Academy of Sciences brought in geologists, archaeologists, and marine surveyors. They took core samples from the stone. They tested the sediment layers. They ran uranium-thorium dating on the calcium carbonate crust that had formed over the stone's surface. The first result came back at 16,700 years. That was impossible. The South China Sea was dry land during the last ice age, but 16,000 years ago, humans in Asia were still supposed to be living in small hunter-gatherer camps. They ran it again. Different sample, different lab. It came back the same. Then a third time. 16,700 years. Read that number again. That makes this site over 5,000 years older than Göbekli Tepe. And it's not a small temple. It's a city. A planned, organized, geometrically designed city, covering over 4 square kilometers. The establishment's response was silence. The Chinese government initially announced the discovery, then retracted the press release. The lead researcher, Dr. Liu Jian, was reassigned and told not to speak to the media. The data was classified, but the images leaked. They show a structure that dwarfs anything from the ancient world. The walls are over 5 meters thick. The pyramid at the center is over 60 meters tall. The stone blocks used in the construction weigh an estimated 100 tons each. That is heavier than the largest blocks at the Great Pyramid of Giza, and they were moved and placed at a depth that would have been above water during the last ice age. The implication is staggering. 16,000 years ago, a civilization with advanced engineering capabilities was building a city in what is now the South China Sea. They were quarrying, transporting, and fitting stones weighing as much as a blue whale. They were mapping out streets and plazas with geometric precision. And then the ice melted, the sea rose. The city was submerged, and the memory of it was lost. Until now. But that is still not the most shocking discovery. The fifth one is the one that breaks the entire model. In 2023, an international team working in the Kermadec Trench deployed a deep-sea submersible to investigate a sonar anomaly detected during a previous survey. The anomaly was a massive, symmetrical structure on the seafloor at a depth of 9,400 meters. The submersible descended for over 2 hours. When it reached the bottom, the camera revealed something that should not exist. A wall. Not a natural formation. A wall made of stone blocks, each block measuring 5 meters by 5 meters by 5 meters. Perfect cubes. The wall extended in both directions, as far as the submersible's lights could reach. The team navigated the submersible along the wall for over 3 kilometers. It did not curve. It did not break. It was a straight, vertical surface made of interlocking stone cubes. The submersible then found a corner. It turned. The wall continued. Another corner. The structure was a massive rectangular enclosure. The team took samples of the stone using the submersible's robotic arm. They brought them to the surface. Geologists analyzed the samples. The stone was basalt, but it had been cut. The cut surfaces showed tool marks, parallel striations consistent with mechanical sawing. The tool marks were clean. They were not the result of natural fracturing. The team then used uranium-thorium dating on the mineral deposits that had formed on the surface of the stone after it was placed. The first result came back at 130,700 years. The lab technician thought the machine was broken. They ran it again. Different sample, different machine. It came back the same. Then a third time. 130,700 years. Read that number again. 130,700 years. That is not human. Modern Homo sapiens did not exist 130,000 years ago. The earliest fossils of anatomically modern humans are only about 300,000 years old, and they were still living in small groups in Africa, using simple stone tools. They were not cutting 5-meter stone cubes and building structures at the bottom of what would later become the Pacific Ocean. The establishment's response was immediate and aggressive. The lead geologist on the project, Dr. Helena Voss, was pressured to withdraw the paper before publication. The journal that accepted it suddenly reversed its decision. Colleagues accused her of contamination in the samples. She responded by sending new samples to 3 different labs. one in Switzerland, one in Japan, one in the United States. All three labs returned the same date, approximately 130,000 years. The tool marks were real, the construction was real, the date was real, and nobody in the mainstream would touch it. The Kermadec Trench structure is the single most suppressed discovery in the history of archaeology, not because the evidence is weak, but because the implications are unacceptable. If a civilization capable of quarrying and moving 5-meter stone cubes existed 130,000 years ago, then the entire human timeline is wrong. Everything we think we know about the rise of civilization is a convenient fiction, and the most terrifying part is that the Kermadec structure is not alone. Sonar scans of the trench have revealed at least 12 other anomalous formations within a 50-kilometer radius. All of them show the same geometric regularity. All of them are at depths that require submersion during the last glacial maximum. The builders were active long before the ice ages. They were building when the sea levels were lower, when the coastlines were different, when the world was a very different place. And then something happened. The structure was abandoned. The sea rose. The civilization vanished. And all that was left were stone cubes at the bottom of the ocean, waiting to be found. Okay, but how did they get here? That is the question the establishment refuses to ask. If a non-human intelligence was building stone structures 130,000 years ago, what were they? And where did they go? The evidence from Göbekli Tepe, Nahal Ain Gev, Yonaguni, the South China Sea, and the Kermadec Trench points to a single pattern, a global network of construction spanning tens of thousands of years. The structures are not random. They are aligned to cardinal directions. They use similar construction techniques, dry stone, interlocking blocks, geometric precision. They are all located in coastal regions that were above water during the last ice age. That suggests a civilization that was maritime. They traveled by sea, they built on coastlines, and when the ice melted and the sea rose, they moved inland, or they moved up, or they died. But here is the part that breaks people. The tool marks on the Kermadec cubes show a level of precision that modern industrial saws cannot replicate. The cuts are perfectly parallel, with no deviation over the entire face of the block. The corners are 90 degrees within a margin of error that requires laser-guided equipment. Whoever built them had technology beyond our own, and they were doing it 130,000 years ago. The mainstream explanation, that it's all natural, that it's all coincidence, requires a suspension of disbelief so profound that it borders on religious faith. The alternative is that human history is a thin veneer over a much older story, a story written in stone at the bottom of the ocean. The uncomfortable truth is this: every one of these discoveries was met with the same response. Test it, retest it, ignore it, suppress it. The establishment does not want you to know that civilization is older than the textbooks say. Because if civilization is older, then the story of progress is a lie. If a non-human intelligence built cities before humans existed, then we are not the pinnacle of evolution. We are the survivors of a world that was not meant for us. And the next discovery is already waiting. Somewhere in the deep ocean, in a dry cave, under a desert, there is another structure, another wall, another impossible date. The researchers who find it will face the same wall of denial, the same pressure to stay silent. But the data does not lie. The stone is real. The dates are real, and somewhere out there the next discovery is already waiting to burn the textbook again. Drop your theory below, because the official answer is nobody knows. And if you want to see what happens when the ocean gives up its next secret, click the video that is about to play.